Okay, welcome. We're just letting attendees in to our panel event today. If you have access to the chat, you can open it up and introduce yourself. Let us know your name, the organization that you're representing today, and it's still January. I'm not going to ask you for your New Year's resolutions, but in the chat, let us know one skill that you want to learn or enhance in 2022. Panelists, you're welcome to contribute to in the chat, introducing yourself. And I can as well. Okay, welcome. We have some new people who are joining. So we're just asking everyone to introduce themselves in the chat. Just tell us your name, the organization you represent, and one skill that you want to learn or enhance in 2022. You can think about that a little bit if you want to and pop it in anytime. Okay, hi, thanks Aiden for introducing yourself in the chat. Hi Laurel, hi Judith, Nicole, Lauren, good to see you. Here's some of the skills people are working on. Always learning. How to train my mind to sleep when my infant does. Okay, great. So there is a brand new baby, it sounds like, in Mark's household. Oh, OneNote for managing meeting minutes and notes. I think I should probably look into that. We're working on DEI at work, so I'm really working on the growth mindset because I've been doing this work for a long time. I always have to keep learning. Amy, working on being fully present and fighting the urge to multitask. You're so good at multitasking, but I know what you mean. Jessamine, improving surfing skills. Okay. Well, you're closer to the coast than I am. Welcome, Sean. It's great to have you here. Sandra is working on enhancing construction and safety knowledge. Hi, Amy. Professionally working on improving Excel skills, personally improving my bump and run golf. I'm glad you explained that for me. I have only ever mini golfed. Okay, hi, Kate. Working on presentation skills, in person and virtual. Oh, and Aiden, you added planning out your workday and workload. That's great. Okay, so I think that's just about everyone, Bree, if you want to open this up.
Wonderful. Good morning. My name is Brianna Marceau, and I'm the Vice President of Operations and Programs at the Greater Concord Chamber of Commerce. I would like to welcome all our members who are attending our forum this morning, and I know some of you will be watching this later. Our panel today will be highlighting some of the wonderful academic opportunities that students in our community can access. Having access to educational programs such as the Concord Regional Technical Center and other schools' learning networks can truly have a transformational impact on a young person, particularly when they can explore their passions in depth in a hands-on learning environment. As we know, support for our students can't just come from the classroom, so we are also grateful to the businesses and organizations for their role in creating pathways for student success. Thanks again for joining us this morning. I will now pass things off to our moderator, Kathi Terami of Careers CLiC.
Okay, hi everyone. We will start by, thank you Bree for that great introduction description of why we're all here today. We will start right away just by introducing panelists. So if each panelist could just take a minute to tell us who you are, where you're from, and what your role is in work-based learning, why you're here today on this panel. So we'll start with Sandra.
Good morning. I'm Sandra Mcneff with North Branch Construction. We're a commercial construction company right here in Concord, New Hampshire. They're human resource generalists. So I'm really the connection between programs such as the CRTC with our management staff, really fostering that relationship between our community and our company to grow new candidates.
Great, thank you. Steve. And don't forget to unmic here. There you go.
Hi, I'm Steve Martin from the Capital Center for the Arts in Bank of New Hampshire Stage. Basically, I've been working predominantly with Clint Close from CRTC at Concord High School. And our goal has been to try to get students into this building to learn how the basic process of putting on a show goes. We have found that working at the Bank of New Hampshire stage has been a lucrative endeavor. We're able to have students come in like at 3 p.m. and look at a load-in process, a show process, and a load-out process. There are other opportunities, but there's always an issue with trying to align times. It doesn't work very well for us to have people come in 2 hours a day or an hour and a half a day, but rather to commit to a whole process. And again, we're just continuing to work with Clint, CRTC, and also other people have called me along the way for volunteer opportunities, et cetera.
Great, thanks, Stephen. We'll dig into some of those successes and challenges too in a little bit. All right, Lucy, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Lucy Little. I'm a year 2 student in the construction trades program at CRTC and currently an intern at North Branch Construction. I've been going with them for a couple of months now. It's been awesome, giving me a lot of new knowledge, and overall it's just been a very rewarding experience.
Great, thanks, Lucy. All right, Amy.
I'm Amy Teigen Smith. I am the work-based learning specialist at the Concord Regional Technical Center. And what that means is that I work with the teachers in all 11 of our programs to make sure that all 280 year 2 students have an opportunity to spend 10 or more hours in a workplace by the time they complete our programs. So that's what I spend my time doing.
Thanks, Amy. And thanks for helping pull this together today too. You worked your magic pulling this panel together, so thank you. Jessamine.
Jessamine Rockwell with Concord High School, and I'm the Extended Learning Opportunities Coordinator. And what that big mouthful of a description means, an ELO places students in a real world setting and then offers coaching from myself and then a community mentor in a business to assist the student in gaining some of those important technical, professional, and personal skills that they may not be able to learn in a typical classroom at Concord High, giving them access to different levels of mastery and skill sets that aren't typically being taught in a high school classroom here, and also encourages a lot of personal growth and preparation for what comes next for students after high school.
Great, thanks, Jessamine. Aiden, introduce yourself, please.
Hello, I'm Aiden Ramshaw. I'm a student at Concord High School in the ELO program. I've been working with Mark at Energy Shield in New Hampshire and through Mrs. Rockwell there, kind of just shadowing Mark and working with him with his day-to-day process. So.
Great, thanks, Aiden. Nicole, welcome.
Hi, I'm Nicole Levake. I work with the New Hampshire Department of Education Bureau of Career Development as a program specialist in work-based learning. Basically, my job is to support all the schools in New Hampshire in their work-based learning opportunities and endeavors, and to kind of look at things around work-based learning from a higher level, see what initiatives are out there, help get the word out about different initiatives, and also to connect businesses to the different schools and opportunities for students in New Hampshire.
Great, thank you. And Mark.
Mark Crandall, I'm the co-owner of Energy Shield in New Hampshire, which is a roofing, siding, and solar company. And yeah, my role is all things computer. So I oversee the marketing, the job costing, the training of our, we don't use the word sales in our company, but our customer relations team. And yeah, I took Aiden on, which we'll get into in a little bit, which was probably one of the coolest processes I've gone through in this company. It opened my eyes to a lot of things.
Great, love hearing that, and would love to hear more about that too in a little bit. Just a point of housekeeping for attendees, you are welcome to ask questions of panelists anytime via the chat. So if something comes to mind as you hear someone speaking, go ahead and write it in the chat. You can direct your question to a panelist or put it out there in general, and any panelist can answer, or a specific panelist can during the conversation when they're not speaking. And we'll try to have a little time at the end for Q&A. We don't know how much time we'll have, so just feel free to ask those questions as you think of them by typing them right in the chat. Okay, so we'll start with let's see, I think we'll start with employers. So Sandra, Steve, and Mark, if you can think of, some of you already mentioned a little bit about what you're doing with your student in your workplace, but you didn't really go into much detail. If you could spend just a couple of minutes telling us about the experience you're having with the student in your workplace, just elaborate on what you might have touched on in your introduction. We'll go back to Sandra, if you want to tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, so the students that we have had come in with us, we've started with job shadowing. So really we get to get a little information about the student to find out what area of construction they're most interested in learning about, or the avenues that they're looking to maybe grow and dive into. So Lucy's been with us for the last couple of months. We love having Lucy with us. She's fits in with the team. It's when she's here, it's almost like it's just another member of North Branch sitting with us, which is really nice. We try to start with job shadowing. So with Lucy, we had her job shadow some of our project managers, and then we also gave her time with our project engineers so she could really see the difference in the two positions and how they support the construction of our projects in the field. What we do is we do job shadowing, and as we get to know the student and they really foster that drive to learn more and kind of have more hands-on, we open them up to doing some things such as Lucy's been participating with meeting minutes. She's been attending some of our construction meetings. She works with our quality reports as well as some of our change orders. So we really let them, if they have that drive and initiative that Lucy has shown, we really let them kind of dive in and get past that shadowing experience to really gain some experience.
Great, thanks so much. That's I'm writing down quotes. I love all this positive language that you're using during your introductions, and now I'm hearing that Lucy was another member of North Branch. That's great to hear. Steve, I know you told us a little bit. You gave us a really good overview of how internships are working with you right now, but I'd love for you to share a little bit more about that. And don't forget to unmute your mic. That's okay.
I always forget to do that, sorry.
You're good, you're good.
I mean, one of the biggest frustrations for me, and one of the things that I really hop on people about, is making sure that the students get something out of whatever they're doing here. You know, there's always a variety of opinions about that. Some people think that people should just watch and observe. Some people think they should get actively involved, and some think they should take on responsibilities and actually, you know, have roles in what we do in production. But I guess overall, we first start with observation, job shadowing. And we've been pretty successful at the Bank of New Hampshire stage in creating that, except for the onset of COVID again. But I think right now I have about 8 to 9 students who have been coming to the Bank of New Hampshire stage, as I said before, approximately 3 in the afternoon, observing the load-in, and if they're capable, actually partaking in the load-in of a show. And most of these shows are music shows, rock and roll, country, whatever. And then actually observing the running of the show on the part of lighting and sound and video. You know, through my employees. And then at the end of the show, if they're able, they can actually observe the strike of a show or the loading out of a show, or they can partake in that as well. We've also talked about having volunteers from CITC come in from the acting program to actually help with ushering at our theater, and to meet some of our older ushers and have them share experiences with each other, etc. Another thing that have interested us is getting together with CITC and possibly having people involved in the video component coming here and actually creating videos to introduce people to the Capital Center for the Arts, our programs, training videos, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a vast amount of opportunities at different levels. But like I said, I always want to make sure that when people come here, they are gaining something from it. It's difficult sometimes for me to know if people are gaining things when they're just observing. But Amy, I'm supposing that they do report to you with all of those things.
Steve, can you I have one clarifying question. Do you have 8 to 9 students there observing at the same time?
We don't. Typically, it's 2 to 3.
Okay.
We also, I know, at the end of the year, we had one student come in and actually observe operations in the box office. And she was really, really a great student. Actually, they put her to work, to be quite honest. So it just depends, I like people to be as hands-on as possible, because to me, that's how you learn, being hands-on, asking questions, etc.
Okay, great.
So
Thank you.
typically 2 to 3, sometimes less.
Yeah. Okay, great. So Mark, can you share a little bit more about the internship experience that you started describing earlier?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, it wasn't really an internship at first. I mean, I know Aiden and his family, so I was talking with him and he was sharing with me how he wants to take some time off from college and learn more about business, and asked if he could learn from me, essentially, basically like a mentorship. And then it transitioned into what it is, which has turned into a really cool process in which, I mean, Aiden's probably going to be in the streets with us this summer because his brain is so bright. But I think, having, doing a lot of internships myself in grad school and in high school, I wanted to, essentially turn the fire hose on when Aiden came, and just let him see everything. And I didn't hide anything when he came here. I mean, the first session that he did with me, I was working on automations coming from our website, and I taught him about SEO and how to blog and how to, rank for keywords on Google. And then the second session, where I think his light really came on, I was showing him job costing. I opened QuickBooks. I showed him our P&L. I went through the profit margins on jobs and what we're aiming for and what our customer relations team is actually doing and how to minimize that. So I gave him, I would say the first 4 sessions were more of a, this is what I do, ask any questions that you have. And I opened everything up to him. And I think I was really inspired because I wasn't thinking, I mean, I was in Future Business Leaders of America class in high school, but I wasn't really thinking about entrepreneurship. So it really inspired me to hear, such a young mind, inquiring about entrepreneurship. But that's what it has looked like. It's looked like him sitting right next to me while I send out our commissions and I send out payroll and I work on automations and, like I said, blogs. He has the tech side of the students of today it blows me away. Like, he has created some Google Sheets for us that will track and spit out our P&Ls for us. But we had a long process before, and now it's just getting my team to actually utilize them. That is the next phase of this development, but it's been really, really cool. And also I've emailed with 2 of you now about getting more students into our company, which I'm really, really excited about as well.
Great. Love hearing that. Why don't we go just directly to Aiden? That's a nice segue in to ask, students, what are you gaining from this experience? It can be specific skills, anything that you want to share.
Yeah, so one of the biggest things has just been like the day-to-day. Like, I'd say that every day that we've met has been something completely different than the last. All the new experiences and just like listening to the way Mark can like handle customers, if we're answering the phones that day, or talking to employees about the jobs. I've just liked the variation, I guess, a lot.
That's great. And Lucy, can you share a little bit about what you've gained from your experience beyond what you shared earlier?
Yeah, I mean, they've been teaching me so much, from mechanical, technical to blueprint reading, but I think the biggest skill that I've learned from this was definitely confidence, and they've helped me gain that confidence for my future and given me a good gateway into the company and overall just the field. But yeah, they've been nothing but supportive on what path I decide to go down.
Lucy, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I didn't know you were going to bring up confidence. And I'm wondering if you can share like an example of that, or just something like how your confidence was before and how it is now, how it's changed specifically.
Yeah, so definitely going into construction, I guess, like it just seemed like a big math equation to me. Like I had no idea what to expect. Didn't know what I was gonna see. And then showing up to North Branch, getting experience there, I've been learning a lot and gave me the confidence in a way where it's like, I thought the information was gonna be very difficult to understand, but it came a lot easier than expected. So I guess, yeah, it's been a good experience and eye-opening.
So it sounds like a little different than maybe what you expected at
Yeah.
first. Like, yeah, wow, that's good to hear. And Aiden, I have a follow-up question for you too. After listening to what Mark described about like how much he's exposing you to and sharing with you, how has that been to experience like so many different facets of a workplace?
Yeah, I think like opening it wide open helped a lot. I think he didn't hide anything from me. And that allowed us to be like open with my questions and our conversations and everything. I think it's made it a lot easier for us to communicate and like just make sure we're on the same page.
And how did it, and you may have had this conversation many times, I don't know, it's the first time I was hearing it. How did it make you feel to hear Mark say that like about like technology skills and that you actually introduced a new way of doing something to them during this time you've been there?
Yeah, I mean, with this and the whole program, I feel like I owe a lot to the company already and be able to help with that. I've always tried to be ahead in like the tech stuff, and I think to be able to help was really cool.
Yeah, that's great, because a lot of times the organization that I work for has been helping with internship programs for over 20 years. And a lot of times a company, the first time they're participating, they might be hesitant and thinking like, we'll be giving, so we have a lot we can give to students, but what could they give to us? So it's really neat to hear that with the students today that you're contributing to these workplaces as well, and to have employers opening up to that it really can be two-way with sharing that. Okay, so thank you for sharing about those internship experiences. We'll get back to some more questions in a little bit for employers and students, but I would love to move on to the practitioners, the people who are helping bridge these experiences between employers and students. So Amy and Jessamine, I would love to hear more from you, starting with, I think we're going to start with Amy. If you can share with us what the components are for successful work-based learning experiences and what you want to share with listeners today.
Sure. So I think the examples that you've heard give you a really good starting place. Some of the things that I heard that I would just want to reiterate is that there is a level of trust between the host and the student, and you build that trust. We spend considerable time preparing our students to go out. We talk a lot about professional skills and the importance of confidentiality, information you might be coming across, and that kind of thing. And I think that you have the opportunity to demonstrate that when you have students in your workplace. I would like to share my screen. I'm going to show you a document called Internship Examples, I think. Can everybody see that? I hope so. So what kinds of projects lend themselves well to internships, or what kind of structure? At CRTC, we start with something as often a job shadow, and I think you heard that too from our employers on this panel, that job shadow is often the first door. They don't typically leap straight into an internship. They get to know a student a little bit on a job shadow first, and then they grow that into something more sustained. So typically we have some sort of mini internship type structures that are anywhere from 1 to 3 hours per week over a quarter, and our quarters are 8 weeks long, and they could grow into an advanced internship. An advanced internship is more like 32 hours per quarter, which if you do the math is more like 4 hours per week. And entirely depends on student schedule, flexibility. Lucy is an example of a senior who had an extremely flexible schedule, was free from 11:30 on several days a week and could really get a valuable experience that way. Not all students have that flexibility. Our CRTC students definitely have one period a week that they are available to participate. So it's important for whoever is hosting our students to be willing to flex with student schedules. And a good experience includes observation and then some hands-on and opportunity to practice collaboration and communication. And you heard from our students that just that opportunity to get out there and demonstrate and practice what they've been hearing about. For any of them, this might be their first foray into the workplace. That's important to them. I've heard students come back and say, with surprise, they asked me what I thought. Like that was a big deal to them, that their opinion was actually valued and sought after. And so ask them questions, ask them for feedback. And we definitely ask you to give your feedback to us and to our students. So here's an example of the kind of feedback we seek. Very simple, asking you to reflect on their attendance, their interaction, their professional skills, willingness to learn, problem solving. Those are the kinds of skills we really hope that they will gain in the workplace. These links will be shared afterwards, and also I will put this one in the chat. These internship examples you can go back and read later. The other piece I wanted to share with you before I yield the floor is here is an example of a internship description. So this just takes a very generic template. These are the skills we want to work on: technical, professional, and technological tools. But you can see this as a whole lot of sort of fill in the blank. Students come to us with familiarity with blank. So a graphic design internship might say, we would like students to come with familiar with Adobe Photoshop. The learning objectives, again, allows you to sort of fill in the blank based on what you have to offer at your workplace. And then the parameters are those things we were talking about: time of day, days of the week, is this virtual, is it hybrid? So I also will be sharing this link with all of you as something that you can use as a resource to work from.
Thank you so much, Amy. Those are some great resources, really showing the logistics and behind the scenes of these experiences. We just heard, it looks like Amy is pasting some of those documents into the chat. Anyone can access those, and we can also share them with attendees after via email. Jessamine, anything at all that you want to share about on your end? I just want to point out again, I know you mentioned this during introductions, Amy is a work-based learning specialist at the Technical Center, but Jessamine is an ELO coordinator at the high school. But I take it you two work together, and sometimes very closely together. You're actually in the same office right now, different backdrops, but same office. So can you tell us a little bit about what it's like for you as an ELO coordinator and what employers can expect from a school that they partner with?
Sure. Amy and I do share a lot of resources all day long. We're asking, do you know someone in this field? Could we share, we share a lot of these documents or create them together. And so we have a pretty similar approach, a little bit of a different protocol with CRTC because they have standards of work-based learning that are required for all of the CRTC students. Whereas at CHS, there is no current requirement for any kind of work-based learning or in the field learning, although our state is changing quickly and these kinds of things will be looked at differently very soon for high school students in general public high schools. So I'm going to share my screen briefly, and I will also put the link to this in after. And I'm just going to share with you what, as an employer or as a business, what you can expect from Concord High on our end and CRTC, anyone who's preparing students to come into the workplace. Let's see. Oh, try to make that. Oh, it's not going to allow me to do my Control-H maneuver. Okay. Again, I will share this. This is two sides of a front and back piece of paper that I tend to hand out to businesses if I'm approaching them to ask them if they would be willing to host a student. And so we're going to look at the right side of this. we make a pledge to the partners that the students have been interviewed. Amy mentioned this, that they've kind of been interviewed and approved as mature and competent students that we're comfortable sending out into a workplace. We do both CRTC and CHS have very similar workplace safety orientation, and we call it boot camp, which is not a workout, at least not here, where we kind of give them the vital components of being in a workplace and what they should do in these adult situations that sometimes come up in a workplace that may not be something that they've experienced before. Make sure that they have the resources that they need both at their site and at the school here to deal with any issues that arise. And we want to partner with them in being the bridge as they are students and still learning. We just want to be their partners in making sure that they can talk to their workplace with any issues, but also make sure that we're doing the right thing on our end for you and your business. Students are expected clearly and obviously to follow all of the workplace expectations at your place of business. And that's something that we make sure that we have, if at all possible, ahead of time so that they know if there's any requirements, let's say PPE, or if there's any you need to have closed-toed shoes, or you need to wear a red shirt, or whatever it is. We try to make a visit while the student is on site at the workplace, but you also are assured of direct and consistent communication with ELO coordinator, work-based learning coordinator, any administration here. Usually Amy and I are the first contact if there's any issue or even any questions or positive response, etc. We're the first line of defense, and we are very closely related to our administrative teams. And so students are expected to also follow all of the CHS and CRTC administrative requirements while they're on your site. So they can't, just because they're on your site in the real world doesn't mean that they're outside of the rules and regulations of their sending school. We cover the students. All the unpaid interns are covered under the Concord School District's insurance policies, and that will come up. I don't remember if that's today or the last time that's discussed, but that there's a lot more details on that that I won't go into, but plenty more information if that's something that pops up in your mind as a red flag or a challenge for hosting students. And we really, really emphasize that our students are not to draw away from the productivity, positivity, performance of your workplace. We want to know if that's happening, but we also hope to reassure you through discussions like this that not only do they not draw away, but in many cases they're adding to the positivity, productivity, and performance of your business. I will stop sharing and I will go ahead and share this whole form with you so you can take a look at it later. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm trying to go through this quickly so we can get to everything.
Justin, that's great to hear. I love framing that as a pledge to community partners. That's really clever how you did that. So that's another document that you can share too. Links are going into the chat, and also we will be sending these out via email, and I think we can create PDFs of those documents for people who can't access the Google links. So you'll be able to get that way after too. And just a reminder, attendees, feel free to ask questions of any attendees here. I am going to shift gears to hear from Nicole, and I just want to remind employers and students, we're going to come back to you with another couple of questions. But Nicole, I would love to hear from you on state resources and guidelines around work-based learning. I know you have a lot of great resources for this work. And also, I didn't ask you during the employer question, but feel free to share a little bit with us about your experiences mentoring interns as well as you're sharing those resources.
Sure. Thank you, Kathi. So going off track for just 1 second, I wanted to add a little bit of something to what Lucy had said about confidence when she was talking about her experience with North Branch. And something that really struck me, and I was actually just really trying to look for this stat, is that there is something out there that says 90% of students that have engaged in a work-based learning are more hopeful about their future than those that haven't. And I really was trying to find that stat so I could be more accurate. I want to say it's 90%, but that's something that really stuck with me. So it's so cool, Lucy, that you have that developing confidence and that you shared that, because it just goes to show how work-based learning can really build that confidence and make you feel so much more hopeful about how life can look after high school and what your future is going to look like. So I just wanted to say that really quickly. And yes, I do have a student that is also doing a work-based learning experience in our office. Her name is Brooke, and she's been with us since about September, helping us with our social media campaign, if you will. She's been really wonderful. She comes in every Monday and we work really closely together, because I'll be honest, we're really in the beginning stages of using social media in our office. We're a little bit behind on that. So she's been really great about doing some research for us and kind of, you know, helping us get more familiarized with the different tools out there to help us run a successful social media campaign. And we're also making sure that she's learning, you know, some of that professional communication and kind of the steps that go into working in a government agency, because, you know, what anywhere else, you can probably just go on to social media and post something, but we have a whole hierarchy of, we have a post. Now it has to go to our communications person and be approved. And then we can finally, you know, post it, but it's not something we can just do. It has to go through a process. So she's been wonderful. We look forward to continuing to have her here. And I appreciate you bringing that up, Kathi, because I forgot in my introduction to say that I did have an intern. So thank you. As far as state level initiatives, so there are a couple of one-pagers that I did send to Kathi. Oh my gosh, I can't find, well, the admin that is on the screen to just share with you all after about Department of Labor guidelines and some of the insurance questions that we often get from employers about, if I take on an unpaid intern, what's the liability, what needs to be done. That's a lot of stuff that at a higher level we handle often with employers and with schools. They ask us all these questions. That's kind of boring stuff, so I don't want to focus on that too long. It's really important, but that will be sent out. And I do want to encourage you, if you have questions, to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to answer any of those around Department of Labor paperwork and guidelines and insurance through Primex. So a couple cool things that we're doing at the state to really incentivize work-based for employers and for students is, one, we have a work-based learning tax credit for employers to participate in if they are hosting a work-based learning activity for a student connected to a career and tech education center. So what's really cool about that is if you are hosting an internship or donating money or donating time to a CTE center or student, you can get up to 100% against your business profit tax credit, business profit taxes for equipment donations, and up to 50% against your business profit tax for salaries of students and supervisors, and any costs for setting up apprenticeships and costs of training, stuff like that. So it's a really great incentive that we have at least through June of this year. We're hoping that we can continue it past June of 2022, but we're still waiting to hear back on that. But we want to get the word out there, because it is a benefit that's actually been very underutilized. So we really want to get that out there. If you're working with a CTE center, hosting a work-based learning, if you're on a partner advisory committee, anything like that, you can put in for that work-based learning tax credit. Another cool incentive that we have, and it has just been passed in our governor and council meeting in December, is we have a new program coming out called Work as Learning. And it's a wage match program for employers to use if they're hosting a paid internship. They can get up to 50% of their reimbursed of what they're paying to students, up to $15 an hour. So if you're paying a student $15 an hour, we would reimburse $750 an hour up to $3,600. So it's a really great incentive for businesses to work with students and have those paid internships available. We don't have any one-pagers on that yet. I'm working on one right now with the company we're working with to get this program up and running. So when I do have that, I will send it out to Kathi and Brianna, and that way they can get that information up for you all. And I think that's where I'm going to stop because I know we have other people to talk to.
This is great. And I've been involved with work-based learning for a long time, and you just shared some new information with me. So it's really good to have you here today sharing those resources. And you may have mentioned it. I was taking some notes and looking at some of the resources that Trieste is pasting into the links. Are some of these things applicable mostly only to for-profit businesses, or what about nonprofit employers?
Oh yeah, great question. So, okay. So for unpaid internships, if you're doing an unpaid internship or an unpaid job shadow, anything like that, there is a component of Department of Labor paperwork that you do have to complete in order to host a student. If you are a nonprofit organization, I believe that you do not have to go through that process of completing that paperwork, but it is going to vary on the school district you're working with. They still might want to make sure that you have your I can't talk today, I'm so sorry, workers' comp and safety summary report on file, just because they want to make sure that they're sending their students to a safe environment. But that is a great question. And as far as the tax credit, I believe that does only go to for-profit businesses.
Yeah. Okay, so that's great. Lots of resources. Going to look at those later. And again, for attendees, we will share these out after via email as well. So I would love to hear from employers and students again. Steve, you kind of kicked us off earlier in your introduction, and when you talked about internship experiences there, about some of the challenges that can come up. I would love to hear from others as well on challenges that come up. And Mark, I'm going to put you on the spot because you're so positive when you're describing the experiences that you've had. But I'd love to hear, like, what kind of challenges come up and how did you overcome them? And if you have had none, that's fine. I'll accept that. But would love to hear about some of those things, because a lot of times when people are thinking about maybe students doing an internship or employers hosting an intern, they might think of obstacles first that might cause them to hesitate. So it's kind of good to hear what challenges came up and how you worked around those, if you have anything you can share, and we'll ask other employers and the students too.
Was that me or Steve you wanted to go first?
Mark.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think I'm thinking of one main challenge, which was scheduling. And my role is, I do a lot of different things. I'm blessed in the space of construction, which I'm very educated on systems and processes. So I have a lot of process in place to handle what I do. But one of the things that we were not anticipating, and I wanted to make sure that Aiden still got his credit, was we purchased a house that needed a lot of renovation, and it's going to turn into an investment property. We're going to convert it into 2 rentals. But like, instead of canceling that session with Aiden, I said, I'm over working on the house. I have 2 of my crews over here. Like, come over, I'll walk you through and talk to you about how to add equity to a home, which is something I'm not going to get into any political stuff here, but when the market shifts, we're going to, as a company, are going to get more into the real estate investing side. So it would be good for you to see anyways. And so that was a challenge, right? And it was like, okay, I got in my head, like, is there a learning experience for Aiden in this? And what I found out was just having the appointment, keeping it. He drove to the new property. We walked it. He was asking a ton of questions, like, why would you do this? Why would you, so it was, I was in my head about it. Like, am I being, a good host of his learning experience? And I think it turned into a really, really cool experience for him. The other side of it, once we rent these properties, it's going to turn, but that conversation turned into investing. right? And like how to not just keep all of your money in the bank, how to invest, what is passive income. And now, and I don't know if you're okay with me sharing this, Aiden's learning day trading now as a result of that initial conversation. So like he's playing with the stock market, and I don't want to freak you guys out, not a lot of money, but he's up and he's updating me almost on a daily basis since he started on, you know, his wins, his losses. I don't think he's lost yet, but which is crazy with what's going on in the market. But yeah, so I guess a big challenge that came up for me was the mindset around like being a good host. And because I'm fluid, I mean, I could be at my computer today and on the seacoast tomorrow, or, you know, meeting with a condo association, or, you know, whatever it is. I stay fluid in my role, which is, you know, shaking hands and kissing babies. That's what I'm really good at, building relationships. And so just keeping that space and being open to seeing opportunities for learning versus, you know, it would have been easy for me to say, Aiden, no, I'm actually working on the house today. I have 2 crews here. Like, let's do next week. Let's do next week. Even when a let's do next week has come up, it's been like, let's chat on the phone or let's do Zoom. You know, I sent him a YouTube video of a financial advisor that I follow to watch last night, you know, at like 9 o'clock. So it's turned into more than just like an on the job. I'm trying to really embrace the entrepreneurial spirit that he brought to our company and really trying to, you know, show him all sides of it. So that was a big challenge. It worked out. And I mean, now he's in the stock market. So, I mean, when he becomes that guy, remember Aiden, because he might be able to lend you some money.
That's great. You kind of answered 2 questions, a challenge and how you overcame it, but also like what surprised you. That was definitely sound like you thought that was going to go a different way, and ended up more beneficial than you expected. So I love hearing stories like that. Aiden, do you have any reaction or response to that, or a totally different challenge that you encountered as a student intern?
Yeah, I don't know if you want to know how I've done the last couple of days, but I had the same thing written down. I know scheduling has been a problem. I have a little bit of school still, and work as well. And with Mark getting the house, he has a toddler and a new kid as well. So that's been hard to work around. But yeah, he's been sending me videos to watch, Zoom meetings I've watched, and to learn whether it's about, I think it was financing solar that we looked in on one time, that Zoom meeting. So it's just been, yeah, like working it around, see what we can do, and trying to learn from everything that we're able to get our hands on.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing. And Sandra and Lucy, I don't know if you have any challenges that you can share with us this morning. Sandra, is there something that you want to share? Lucy, you just unmuted. If you want to start, that's fine. I saw that.
Okay, yeah, I mean, basically what Mark and Aiden said, scheduling was very difficult, only because my school thought it would be a wonderful idea to make no week the same. So every single week it was a different schedule, and I couldn't give them a consistent day I could work. So, I mean, we ended up figuring it out just by scheduling date to date, which definitely worked. But the last thing I wanted to do was make it complicated for them. But we overall did it. So I think we're set.
So yeah, I guess I'm just chiming in on that. So the construction industry as a whole is trending upward here in New Hampshire. So construction is booming and we're busier than ever. So with that comes short staffing across the board in any industry, I think, here in the state of New Hampshire. But the construction trades have been hit hard with staffing. So taking on an internship or a job shadow or any of that right now sometimes can be an overwhelming or daunting thought of you're taking on one more thing through your day. So trying to figure out how to take that on with all the scheduling and things like that. And like Lucy said, scheduling's tough. You know, you got to work it into our scheduling plus Lucy's scheduling. And in construction, and especially with our project managers, they're on the job sites, they're in their offices, they're at meetings and things, and we're not always close to Lucy's home. So that's the other thing is whether or not we can get Lucy to where we need her to be so that she gets the training, gets what she needs out of it. I think overall we did a pretty good job. I do have to say one of the surprises and was a welcomed surprise for us was Lucy's professionalism with her schedule and communication level with the staff was phenomenal. I mean, she comes in and she has her schedule all laid out. She knows where she has to be, when she has to be there, and what time she can commit. And when she says she's committed to being here, she's committed to being here. So that's really helpful to us. And it for our management team that's really assisting Lucy's education here, that is something to be rewarded tenfold for them. So they love it.
Oh, that's great. Great job, Lucy. Those are some real kudos to you. Nicole, I saw your hand up, but one second.
Yes. Okay.
No, go ahead, since you unmuted.
Okay.
And I have a question for Steve.
I was just actually going to add to what was the conversation was about what's been hard. And I do want to weigh in and say that scheduling is kind of funny because when you have students come in, they talk to you like you know exactly what A block is and B block is, or like the crimson days and stuff like that. So it's a lot of saying, okay, so what does this actually mean, and working with them to figure it out. But that being said, I think that everyone's concerns around schedules is something that is felt statewide as far as trying to get students in for work-based learning. And I don't know if this is well known or if this is a local decision. So maybe Amy, you can weigh in too, but are students allowed to do work-based learning after school or on weekends? And is that something that is ever looked at as an option to kind of help with some of that scheduling stuff, or is it just kind of how it's aligning with the business schedule as well?
We do schedule some work-based learning outside of school hours. A problem is, of course, outside of school hours generally is outside of business hours. So especially in the construction trades, when our kids get out at 2:30 and they're wrapping up at 3 or 3:30, you know, and there's that distance. They're out on a job site, and you know, the kids are getting there for the last hour of the day, and there's not much happening at that time. The other way we have worked around it is we have scheduled internship intensives during a winter break, for example. You know, we have a whole week. And so kids might give up a couple of days. They can get up to 40 hours in during that week. And it, depending on whether or not they're willing to give up that break, some of them are for the experience. Sometimes we do a 20-hour internship over a break. So that is another way to work around it. So it is an option, but it has its own set of scheduling headaches.
Thank you.
I would just add to that in my world, because it's not a requirement, of a number of hours, we have a little more fluidity with that on the credit bearing process here. So I have a lot of students that do ELOs after school. That's the main time for most of the students that are doing a straight ELO through Concord High School. And it is tricky if they're in trades because there's this travel, but then there's a lot of students who are doing things that are outside of the trades, and a typical business may close at 5. And so they may have that 2:30 to 5, especially if it's close by. And then weekends, you know, if a business is open on Saturdays, the student can go on Saturdays. So there are some options.
And of course, Steve could speak to the fact that all of his opportunities are outside of school hours.
Yeah, Steve, I just thought you started in your introduction talking about like scheduling and 2 hours a day and, you know, the limits around that. So I'd love to hear what your comments are. And we did not plan this, that everyone would have the same challenge to talk about, but this was perfect.
Right.
And then Steve, after you, there is a question from an attendee in the chat that I'll bring up next for the student.
Now, scheduling is obviously a huge problem. I mean, I've done some internship work in the past where students have come like, say, Mondays and Wednesdays from, 1 to 3 or something like that. And it's been a failure in my eyes. I mean, it means I have to take my schedule, come up with projects that are pertinent to the student, or ignore them. And I don't want to do that. So I come up with projects like people, if they, let's say, for example, have shadowed me as a production manager. So then all of my production management, advancing shows, et cetera, I would schedule a lot of it during those time periods. But as Mark said, we're very fluid. I mean, my workday sometimes starts at 7 in the morning and goes till 3 in the morning. It just depends. One project that we've done with CRTC, which has been very successful, has been Capital Arts Fest. For the last 3 years, we've had students come in at 6 a.m. on a Saturday, work till approximately 10:30 at night, come back at 6 the next day or 7, and work till approximately 5 or 6 in the afternoon. So it's been a complete weekend of intensive work. For the Capital Arts Fest, we present 9 shows on an outdoor stage out on Main Street. And the students come in and basically they run the lights, the sound, the setups of all the bands, the intermissions between bands. So it's a great experience. And most of the bands coming into that experience have really enjoyed the fact that they're working with high school students, and the students are learning and they're getting great exposure to the community. So scheduling hours, I never really works for me at all, to be quite honest, unless I had, like, say, an office job, which I don't have. But project-based is great. If we do projects and students come in for a particular project, whether to work on something or to observe, that's the best formula for me.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Steve. Scheduling is definitely a challenge, but it sounds like it's so worth it to work it out. And students, you are adding this on to your school day, and your academics and employers, you are, adding this on to your work day. So there's a lot of giving, but it sounds like it's just a win-win that everyone's benefiting from this. So it's worth it getting creative with those schedules. We have a question in the chat from an attendee. Lauren is asking Lucy and Aiden, as you reflect on your experiences, what do you wish you had known when you were younger, and how do you envision taking these experiences into your futures? Either of you want to answer that? Aiden, we'll start with you.
One of the biggest things I think I've learned so far is how important connections are, and how you can learn from everyone you meet. There's always something you can learn from them and teach them, especially in the business world and the marketing world. Working with Mark, he ends up talking to someone that I've never heard or seen from almost every day. He just knows a lot of people that can all help him, and he can help. So I think just working with everyone and making those connections for the future.
That's great. Thanks for bringing that up. That's so important. Lucy, do you have anything you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, probably communication and confidence is what I wish I knew a couple months ago, how essential it is to, being able to meet new people, talk to them, have a genuine conversation with them, and make those connections within the field.
Okay, that's great. Well, you have a lot of future ahead of you. So to be gaining those things now in high school, I would say you're in a very good place. I just looked at the clock and see that we have 2 minutes left. So Bree, I'm not sure if you want to bring us to close. It looks like we've gone through our questions in the chat for now. Attendees, if you have other questions that come up later, get them to us, and we can field those with the panelists and get back to you. And we'll be sharing lots of resources over email too.
Yeah, so I'd like to extend our thanks to this dynamic panel of presenters and our moderator, Kathi, who joined us here this morning. I'm absolutely thrilled with the amount of information and experiences that each of you shared with us today. This information is certainly empowering for businesses in our area who are looking to take that next step to create pathways for students. So for those of you that are attending this webinar in live time, we will follow up with you to provide links to all of the resources shared today. And for those that may be watching this later, you can visit our website, concordnhchamber.com, for additional links and resources. You can also reach out to us directly by emailing programs@concordnhchamber.com. So thanks again to everyone.
Thank you, everybody.